So a national crisis hits, right? The headlines are screaming about policies and protests and who has the power. But what if the real story, the one that actually explains all the anger and the division, what if that story isn't happening on the streets at all, but inside our own heads? That's exactly what we're going to dig into today.
To do this, we're going to use a fictional crisis as a kind of lab experiment to peel back the layers of how we react to things. We're going to look into what our source material calls the mirror of malice, and in doing so, we're going to try and understand a hidden force that is shaping our world way more than most of us realize.
Okay, let's set the scene. We're jumping forward just a little bit to January 2026. The place is Minneapolis, a city that is absolutely on the edge, and it's about to become ground zero for a massive national showdown.
Here's the rundown. An operation called Metro Surge basically floods the Twin Cities with thousands of federal agents. Tensions just explode when two local residents, Renee and Alex Pretti, are killed during these operations. And the result? The entire city grinds to a halt with a massive general strike. So on the surface, this looks pretty straightforward, right? A classic fight over federal power. But that's just scratching the surface.
And now we get to the real heart of the matter. We're going to move beyond what happened and start exploring why it felt so incredibly personal and so divisive to so many people. This is where we step into the psychological trap.
So here it is, the big question the source material drops on us. What if this whole explosive city-stopping crisis isn't really about immigration policy or states' rights at all? What if it's just a symptom of a much deeper, almost automatic mental reflex?
This thing is called partisan-motivated reasoning. And here's the key. It's not about finding the truth. Not at all. It's about protecting our team. You can think of it like your brain has hired a bodyguard for your political identity. Any fact that supports your side, the bodyguard waves it right in. But any fact that challenges your side, it gets thrown out on the street. It's this little shortcut our brain loves to take, but man, it has some huge consequences.
And you can see this play out so clearly. It's like we're all reading from the same script. If our party is in charge, sending in federal agents is a necessary action to restore order. But if the other party does the exact same thing, suddenly it's federal overreach and we have to fight tyranny. The action itself doesn't change, but the label, our entire interpretation, completely flips based on whose team is in power.
And this is where it gets really tragic. The deaths of Renee and Alex Pretti, they stop being human tragedies. They just become these ink blots, these Rorschach tests. We stop seeing the actual people. Instead, we just see whatever our political team needs us to see. A martyr for our cause, or, a sad but necessary cause for theirs. The actual person just vanishes, and all that's left is ammo for a political fight.
But why are our brains so good at this? Why is this our default setting? Well, to understand that, we have to go even deeper than psychology. We've got to go right down to the biological wiring that's really running the show.
Okay, get this. It's called the identity protection reflex. Your brain, my brain, it literally cannot tell the difference between a threat to your political beliefs and a physical threat to your survival. So when someone shows you a fact that contradicts your worldview, your heart rate actually spikes. Adrenaline starts to flow. You go into fight or flight mode. Because to our ancient primitive brain, being kicked out of the tribe was a death sentence.
Social psychologist Jonathan Haidt explains this perfectly with his metaphor of the elephant and the rider. Think of it like this. Your gut feeling, your intuition, that's this huge, powerful elephant. And it's already decided which way to go based on emotion and group loyalty. And your logical brain, that's the tiny rider on top, just hanging on for dear life and making up excuses for wherever the elephant is already headed. Our brain isn't designed for truth. It's designed for social survival.
And that really drives home just how high the stakes are for our brains. Admitting that your side might have been wrong about the Minnesota surge, that isn't just losing a debate point. To your primal brain, it feels like you are willingly walking out into the freezing wilderness, all alone where death is pretty much guaranteed. That fear of being kicked out of the group, it's so powerful it will crush facts every single time.
Okay, so we've got this psychological glitch and this ancient biological instinct. But what happens when the modern world builds a giant machine to exploit them both, 24/7? Well, you get trapped. Trapped in what the source material calls a narrative prison.
Welcome to the age of algorithmic outrage. In our social media feeds, truth isn't the goal anymore. Not even close. The goal is engagement. And you know what gets the most engagement? Outrage, anger, fear. The algorithm learns what makes you mad, and then it just feeds you more and more of it, locking you into this perfect little digital echo chamber where your side is always the hero and the other side is always pure evil.
And the source material makes this incredible comparison to Orwell's 1984. The algorithm is the new Ministry of Truth. If some complex, nuanced fact about the Renee Good shooting doesn't get a ton of likes and shares and angry comments, the algorithm just buries it. It's not that the truth is banned, it just doesn't get clicks. And if it doesn't get clicks, it effectively disappears from our reality.
And these are the bricks that build the prison walls around us. Engagement replaces truth. We get sealed off from other points of view in our digital silos. The shared reality we all need to actually solve problems just fragments and falls apart. And we stop acting like citizens trying to figure things out, and we become soldiers in a dumb information war, where being outraged is just the price of admission.
Okay, wow, so we're trapped. Is there a way out? Well, the final reveal in this whole thing isn't another problem. It's a potential solution, but it requires a pretty fundamental shift in how we see the world and, more importantly, our place in it.
The source calls this the age of wind. Basically, the idea is that all the big, heavy institutions we used to trust, governments, the media, universities, they're kind of collapsing. They can't give us a stable, shared reality anymore. And in their place, we have these light forces, the constant flow of data, managing perception, and, this is the most important one, individual conscience. And yeah, that's both terrifying and incredibly empowering.
And that leads to the most critical question for us, right now. If the people who used to draw the maps are gone, if the ground under our feet is shifting all the time,
then how do you keep from just being blown away? The answer, it seems, can't come from the outside anymore. It has to come from within. You have to build your own internal anchor.
This isn't a new problem. The Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius was talking about this exact thing 2,000 years ago. He said that when we attach our happiness and our sense of who we are to things we can't control, like a political party winning or the outcome of some crisis, we're basically just fighting shadows in a blizzard. The only way to find any real stability is to anchor ourselves in our own reason and our own character, not in the chaos swirling around us.
So, okay, how do we actually build this anchor? The source gives us 4 pretty concrete steps. First up, practice what it calls the doubt of the wise. Question everything in your feed, especially the stuff that makes you feel really good and righteous. Second, try to reclaim plain English. Describe what happened in Minnesota without using loaded words like tyranny or order. Just say what happened. Third, focus on the local and specific. Worry less about national policy and more about the problems on your actual street. And finally, find real human solidarity with your neighbors as people, not as political avatars you argue with online.
Which brings us to the final, and maybe the most important question of all. When you shatter that mirror of malice, when you stop defining yourself by what you're against, when all those partisan labels fall away, who's left? Who are you really? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this one.